Hello and welcome to The Nation. I'm Elaine Rabla. Islamic finance has emerged as an effective tool for financing development worldwide, including non-Muslim countries. Major financial markets are discovering solid evidence that Islamic finance has already been mainstreamed within the global financial system and that it has the potential to help address the challenges of ending extreme poverty and boosting shared prosperity. The term Islamic finance is used to refer to financial activities conforming to Islamic law or Sharia. Now, one of the main principles of the Islamic finance system is the prohibition of the payment and the receipt of riba or interest in a financial transaction. Islamic finance is set to keep expanding in 2020 and beyond as the Gulf Cooperation Council or GCC countries and Malaysia help drive growth in Sharia-compliant financial products, even though COVID-19 may disrupt sukuk issuance. The outbreak of COVID-19 is expected to have a major impact on Islamic institutions as well, just as it has on conventional banks. Lower financing demand, a reduced fee income and additional subsidized financing will hit revenues. Non-performing facilities are forecast to rise, although they may not be booked this financial year. Impairments will rise as well. So today we have the privilege of speaking to Dr. Bello Lawal Danbatta, Secretary General of the Islamic Financial Services Board or IFSB, on the topic of Islamic financial services and the way forward. Hello, Doctor. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Elaine. Thank you for having me.
Now, let's dive straight into the first question. We talk about the Islamic Financial Services Board itself. Can you tell us about what the Islamic Financial Services Board does, its roles and its mandate?
Thank you. Islamic Financial Services Board is an international standard-setting body, a key standard-setting body for the prudential regulation of the global Islamic financial services industry. The IFSB was set up in 2002 and we commenced operation in 2003 with only 9 members. The IFSB has now grown to about 187 members,
wow.
Comprising of 99 market players, 79 regulatory and supervisory authorities, as well as 9 international organizations, including the IMF, the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, the Islamic Development Bank, and the World Bank itself. They are all members of the IFSB. The membership of the IFSB has now spread to about 57 jurisdictions. And main key aspect of the IFSB, as it is mandate, is basically to develop prudential standards that will support the regulation of the Islamic financial services industry, and at the same time also to facilitate the implementation of this standard by building the capacity of our members and for them to be able to understand the standards and be able to implement them. The other aspect of or the third key aspect of the IFSB mandate is basically to promote international collaborations and cooperations with other international organizations and other stakeholders. Basically, that is related to our mandate, which is basically promoting resilience and stability of the Islamic financial services industry. I can now say that proudly the IFSB has now issued about 32 standards, guidance note, and as well as the technical note for the regulation of the Islamic financial services industry. And I think the membership of the IFSB has proven that the Islamic finance is all over the world, because now currently we have Islamic finance in about 60 jurisdictions all over the world, and including not only in Muslim-dominated country, but as well in Muslim minority countries or even non-Muslim jurisdictions.
It looks like a meteoric growth. In 2002, barely 9 members, and now close to 100, more than 100 countries.
Yes.
It must
187 members from 57 countries.
From 57 countries,
Yes,
187 members.
Yes.
So now, as a standard setter for the Islamic financial services industry, well, that's what IFSB is meant to do, which constitutes, of course, a relatively now still small share of the overall global financial services industry. What is the level of global recognition received by IFSB's standards?
Well, I mean, yes, I can agree with you that Islamic finance compared to the conventional finance is still very small, but the rate of growth is very, very huge and is big. Because in the sense that for Islamic banking alone, the average rate of growth annually is about 6.9%, while for the Islamic capital market is about 27% on average year-on-year growth. Currently, the Islamic financial services industry stood at 2.44 trillion US dollars. In terms of dollar value, yes, it's quite small. But in terms of also separate, we now have 13 jurisdictions whereby Islamic finance has reached a systemic significance. So this growth in terms of the Islamic financial services industry drive the demand and the need among all the stakeholders to have some good practices to ensure that it's properly conducted and being regulated. Right. So as a result of that, the IFSB's standards has been recognized by many jurisdictions, and I think, as I mentioned, we have issued 32 standards to date, and we are now having more new standards to issue because currently the mandate of the IFSB is not only focusing on Islamic banking, but we look at Islamic capital market as well as Islamic insurance, which is takapul, and the takapul is also growing very fast, just like the rest of the sectors. Now, in terms of the international recognition, apart from just the level of membership that we have received, or we currently have, if you look at the IMF being a member of the IFSB, the Bank of International Settlement, and the World Bank, and the Islamic Development Bank, the Asian Development Bank being members of the IFSB, that gives IFSB the recognition, the prestige that it's have, because currently we are the only prudential standard setting body. We have other standard setting bodies from the Islamic financial service industry that issue maybe accounting or Sharia standards, but we focus more on the prudential regulation. And in 2018, we have the executive board of the IMF recognizing one of the IFSB core principles for Islamic banking regulation, which is IFSB 17, a standard that is meant to provide some clarity in terms of the principles that are required for the regulation of Islamic financial service industry as part of their IFSB assessment program. And last year also, towards the end of the year and beginning 2020, we have the Financial Stability Board also recognizing the IFSB core principle standard, and which is a great milestone for the IFSB. And
IFSB is headquartered here in...
The IFSB is headquartered here in Malaysia. Right. The office is, we are next to Bank Negara. We are hosted by Bank Negara Malaysia. Bank Negara Malaysia has been the host of the IFSB for right from its establishment. And then the work of the IFSB, as I mentioned, is issuing the prudential standard, but we complement the work of other conventional standard setting bodies like the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, the International Organization for Securities Commissions, as well as the International Association for Insurance Providers, IIS.
So what drives this growth for this adoption for the Islamic financing?
Yeah, I think the demand, the growth for Islamic finance is basically many jurisdictions and individuals per se in many countries are looking for alternative. Because the philosophy behind the Islamic finance is more of promoting goodness to the society and to the people. And the key principles, as you rightly mentioned in your opening remarks, the prohibition of interest is one of those key features of Islamic finance, because interest is considered as an operation, because operation of need by someone.
Let's talk about a layman term for anyone that's watching this. How do they differentiate Islamic financing versus the conventional way of financing?
Well, I mean, one can clearly differentiate Islamic finance by understanding the fact that the philosophy is different from that of a conventional finance.
So what is the guiding philosophy?
The guiding philosophy, one of the things that you mentioned is basically prohibition of riba, and then that is one, and then the compliance of all transactions with the Sharia law, in terms of there will be no uncertainty in transactions that will lead to dispute, and then there will be no operation, and then there will be no gambling, and then there will be no any transaction that is involved in something that is being prohibited by Sharia law. At the same time, also something that is promoting goodness to the people is all about the Islamic finance, what it promotes. So for a layman, he will understand Islamic finance in terms of the entirety, because of the Sharia compliability of the whole structure, because Sharia is the Islamic law. So Islamic finance is funded based on that Islamic law to provide that. So, and then whether you are a Muslim or not a Muslim, Islamic finance is meant for all. It's not meant for Muslim only, because it's a divine guidance that is given with that is meant to promote goodness to the society and to the people.
Essentially, it's just a system that is created based on those fundamental principles.
Yes, absolutely.
Which applies for anyone who wants to subscribe to those same principles.
Well, not necessarily subscribing, but who wants economic value. We want to. I always argue Islamic finance not only from the divine compliance or from the first perspective, but more on the economic value perspective. Islamic finance tends to offer more economic value. Let me, for example, now. Yeah. If you take a loan from the bank, the way the relationship between you and the bank is that of a debtor and a creditor.
That's right.
So whenever there is a call from the bank, you get scared and then you don't know what to do.
Yes.
But for Islamic finance, the relationship is more of a partnership because it's more of a sell transaction. Right. So if you are buying a car, instead of you to take a loan to buy the car, and then the banks come after you. In Islamic finance, they buy the car, they put a markup profit, and then they sell it to you, and it's spread over the years. And what you are owing them is basically the debt. All right, but
it sounds like a rental.
It's somehow like a rental, but for rental is different. We have a different contract that we use. That's why Islamic finance, we have variety of contract that we use. For sale, we use murabaha. For leasing, we use ijara. For investments, we use musharaka or mudaraba. So there are various contracts that is being used. But what I'm trying to say is that the banks cannot just chase you.
Or change
So there must be some kind of mutual understanding, mutual benefit, and you agree to the terms, and you and you succumb to it. So it's more of some kind of mutual understanding, which is called mu'amalat, a very mutual economic dealing that is beneficial to all. Okay. So in that case, I mean, that makes it different, but it's not meant only for Muslim. It's meant for everybody, and it's a very resilient kind of system that has proven it is resilient, and that's why it's growing faster.
Now, speaking of the word resilience, we are in the midst of a global pandemic. COVID-19 affects everyone, not just those who are in the front line, not just those who are in the airline industry that has halted businesses, or if you're in any economic sector at this point of time. So looking at the current global environment and the ongoing pandemic, what are the implications for Islamic financing, and what is the way forward for Islamic finance to remain robust and resilient post the COVID-19 world?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the COVID-19 created a great challenge to almost every system. Islamic finance definitely is not immune to this kind of pandemic or to any financial crisis. So for Islamic finance to continue to be resilient is basically requires the same measures that are taken by the conventional finance. So some of the measures that is being taken are actually very applicable to Islamic finance. But for Islamic finance to make a niche, which we believe that it can make a difference, is basically it is inclusive nature, and it is the underlying philosophy that need to be reassessed in terms of the application, not the philosophy to be reassessed, but the application of the philosophy need to be reassessed in the sense that to look at more profit sharing contracts, and then more new instrument that is to be developed. So this is really necessary and essential for the Islamic finance to be continue to be resilient post COVID-19. But I think the measures that is being taken by many jurisdictions, particularly our members in regulatory and supervisory authorities in our jurisdictions, has been very, very, I can say, accommodative. They relax some of the policies that are meant to support the resilience, and we have seen in the economic recovery plans of many jurisdictions as well, given some consideration for Islamic finance. Likewise, in the new policies and the monitoria that is being introduced by many governments also has included Islamic finance in that. So we believe Islamic finance will excel, but it requires some reassessment of the application of the philosophy by looking at more of value-based intermediation kind of structures. Islamic social finance is also another opportunity that Islamic finance can tap into, and I think above all is we can leverage on the digitalization to get Islamic finance to be more inclusive, more resilient, and then more sound.
Right. We'll take a short breather right now. When we come back, let's talk about that, the digitalization of Islamic Islamic finance, as well as the reassessment of the application that you were mentioning earlier, and we'll go a little bit into detail on that. We'll take a short breather right now. Thanks for stay tuned. We'll be right back after these short messages.
With the MERS 999 application system, getting emergency assistance is now easier. Save Me 999 Police connects the Malaysian public to the police. Save Me 999 Deaf for those with hearing or speech impairments. And Save Me 999 Blind for those with visual impairments. Download now for free on your smartphones. MERS 999 and applications make emergency calls easier.
Hai, saya Samad. Saya stres. Ini kawan saya, Ismail. Ismail juga ada kalanya stres jika berhadapan dengan kerja yang banyak. Mereka di rumah juga stres. Lumrah manusia, kita semua menghadapi stres. Stres yang keterlaluan menyebabkan keresahan dan kemurungan. Kita boleh menguruskan stres dengan bijak. Amalkan cara hidup sihat seperti bersenam setiap hari, makan secara sihat dan uruskan waktu dengan bijak. Kongsi perasaan dengan orang yang anda percayai. Let's talk Minda Sihat.
Hello, thanks for staying with us here on The Nation. You're watching Bernama TV with me, Islamic Abdullah, and I'm speaking to my guest, Dr. Bello Lawal Danbatta. He's, of course, the Secretary General of the Islamic Financial Services Board, IFSB. And today we're speaking about the topic of Islamic financial services and the way forward. Doctor, earlier we touched quite extensively with regards to sort of like the description of Islamic financing and how we can move forward, especially in the wake of COVID-19, where everyone is tested right now in terms of its resilience and how it's going to be able to withstand the oncoming recovery that we're hoping to be able to build back for most communities, most countries, and most societies. Now, let's talk about the next question. We did mention about the application. Instead of Islamic finance, it's not looking at a philosophical reassessment, more like a reassessment of application. So perhaps you can give us a little bit more detail of how that reassessment would look like and how it would work.
All right. I mean, the philosophy, as we highlighted, is basically based on the Sharia law, which is basically the Islamic law. And then their application is the main thing, because Sharia is very dynamic, very robust, and very comprehensive and universal in terms of timing. So it's timeliness because it's a divine law from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the way we see the Sharia is that it can be applied in at any time and then at any situation.
Now,
But
what are the dynamic changes that needs to happen right now? Because these are unconventional times. Unprecedented measures need to be put in place. Like there's an unexpected moratorium that happened because we are facing really hardships, a lot of challenges, and everybody has to react together. So how flexible is the system in order to adapt?
I mean, there are two aspects of this question. One, we have to look at it from the regulator's perspective, and as well as the market player's perspective.
Yes.
And if you want, the third aspect is basically the customer's perspective as well.
Yes.
All right. For the regulators, I think there has been a lot of initiatives among our members for coming up with some relaxation of some of the stringent requirements.
Yep.
And they already defined clearly the period that this relaxation will last. And then most of them, they are developing some exit plan on when to exit from this, this. But for the market players, who has been predominantly using some kind of few number of products like Murabaha, which is basically a sale contract, and Ijara, which is basically a leasing contract to structure majority of their products. That's at this time now, there is a need for them to now look at what are the other opportunities that they can leverage on Islamic finance. So it's not, the philosophy is very robust, but now how they apply the philosophy to make sure that they are still in compliance with Islamic law, with Sharia. So this is what is required. So there is a need for them, for them to start looking at the profit, more of the profit sharing contracts, and then structuring new products that are meant for that. But at the same time, they there is a need for us to have some kind of new innovation.
Right.
In terms of entrepreneurship, and then in terms of the even product structuring. So innovation is really necessary. A sound education and understanding of the Islamic finance philosophy is also of essence to the players, basically the stakeholders, all particularly the institutions that are providing the services. So this is required at this time to really accommodate this kind of new normal, because I mean, me and you, we all know that during the lockdown, if you have 2 cars or 3 cars, or how many clothes that you have, you are indoors, you don't even move out, you don't need that. So there is...
It becomes a burden.
It becomes a burden, exactly. So there is a need for us to really have to really think of the concept of wealth itself, how wealth is really, being... look at and then the distribution of wealth also we have to look at. So there is a need for us to look at how we can now have more inclusivity, and then there is a need for us to also look at the other aspect of Islamic finance that has not been utilized much, like the Islamic social finance.
Before we go about Islamic social finance and you describing and explaining to us on that, will there be changes in terms of regulation and policy in the face of COVID-19 and in face of whatever economic challenges that are coming? It's how I would assume that a lot of businesses will also change how their contract laws work. Would this also be something that will be relooked at in terms of the financing side?
Yeah, definitely. That's really essential. But at the same time, also we have to be mindful of the new risks that this pandemic brought in. A lot of people are now working from home, and then now there is some escalation or increase in cybersecurity risk.
Yes.
So there is a need for a new regulation, new measures to be put in place.
Right.
At the IFSB level, what we did was actually to look at all our standards that we have issued, and then we try to review and see where are the gaps, and then what is the implication of the policies that is being issued by all our members, because we created a compendium of policies for all our members that are regulatory and supervisory authorities.
And I'm sure it's evolving as you go along.
Yes, it's evolving, because as they also issue the policies, they realize that they need to maybe amend it and then change it as well. But what we do is basically we review some of these policies and see how it affects our previous work and our ongoing work. And then we come up with some recommendations as measures to mitigate the impact of the COVID-19 on the stability of the
So let's quickly
Islamic
talk about
industry.
social finance. What is this, what you're talking about?
Oh, well, Islamic social finance is a concept of more of social responsibility. It's more of utilization of charity, which is sadaqah or use of zakat and waqaf to support the system. So there has been recently promotion of the Islamic social banking. Is one of those areas whereby the appetite for bottom line by the shareholders, by the banks, or by the service providers need to factor basically the social responsibility aspect.
Right.
So that is one aspect. The other aspect is basically the utilization of zakat and waqaf and sadaqah that can be now being used. One of the asnaf or beneficiaries of zakat are those that were rich and they got broke. Now they are they are bankrupt. So a lot of small, medium SMEs or small and medium enterprises are actually being affected by the pandemic, and then they now went broke. So now it's time for us to start looking at what the Islamic social finance instrument like zakat can come to their aid. In what way that the sadaqah also will come to their aid. Can I be able to now promote and support, so either within a community or within a particular society or within a country.
Is this being done
right now?
Yes,
a lot of our members are already looking into that, and even before COVID-19, there has been a lot of initiatives by majority of the jurisdictions where we have members. There are initiatives from the private sector. There are initiatives also as well from the regulators, and I think that's why IFSB last year, for the first time, we issued a technical note on financial inclusion. This technical note is the first guidance or technical note in terms of prudential regulation that is ever issued by any international standard setting body. So IFSB were the first to issue that, and the essence of that is to drive financial inclusion using either Islamic social finance instrument or fintech or collective investment schemes or crowdfunding, and these are the essence of that. So we believe that will really help.
So we're running out of time. In closing, what would be your message in terms of the way forward?
Well, my message is actually for the institutions, Islamic financial service industry, all stakeholders to really have a rethink on the situation that we currently find ourselves. The new normal has taught us a new lesson, and then that lessons need to be taken on board and taken seriously. And then for the regulators, I think the initiative that they have taken to relax the some of the policies and guidelines and rules that they have initially issued was a welcome developments that really need to be praised and appreciated by the global Islamic financial services industry. But at the same time, also we want the market players to really think out of the box and come up with more innovative, socially responsible instrument that will bring the beauty of Islamic finance philosophy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bello. That was Dr. Bello Lawal Danbatta. He's, of course, the Secretary General of the Islamic Financial Services Board, speaking to us about the topic of Islamic financial services and the way forward. And that's all the time that we have. Thanks for staying with us till the end of The Nation. I'm Elaine Rabla. Bye for now.
Thank you, Elaine, for having me. It's my pleasure.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Saya nak menzahirkan rasa terima kasih kepada anda semua sebagai rakyat Malaysia. Anda adalah manusia yang hebat. Kita ibarat sebuah keluarga yang besar. Kita saling bantu-membantu ketika zaman susah.